Welcome to NEXTGames, a guide to Ninja series. This video covering the new Mpaca set. Now in this video I'm going to cover the current equipment sets just for comparison's sake, briefly. Then I'll cover the new Mpaca set and its unique stats. Then I'll cover a new counter set using the Mpaca body. And then during all of this I'll be showing you how each of these perform so that you can make your own judgments on when they can be used. So the first thing I want to do, just for comparison's sake, is give you an idea of what the numbers look like that we're going to be looking at in our regular TP build. So that's what I'm in right now, is the regular Kendatsuba +1 build that I recommend that you're in for most of your endgame content if you're going for DPS. And in this setup, the main thing we want to focus on for this video is this defense portion right here. Now I just reset it a second ago, which is why it's not currently showing any accurate information. But just a note, we have at this moment 4 Apex Crabs on us and 4 Apex Jagills, all level about 130. Now as you can see, we are taking about 160 damage per hit on average. We're only evading, finally we've started evading some attacks, it looks like about 2% of the time, and we're parrying about 3% of the time, so we're really only avoiding the attacks, roughly about 5% of the time right now it looks like. So let's see what happens as we get a little bit more data here and what happens with these numbers. But I can say from the get-go, I was shocked by just how low these numbers were when I was in my DPS set. I thought Ninja natively had a bit more evasion than this. Since we're not evading or parrying really any attacks, look at all those hits we are taking from these Crabs and Jagills that are in that 150 to 200 damage range. Now it's obviously a small amount of damage, but when there's 8 of them on you and you're not really evading any of them, they definitely can add up quite quickly, and as you can see, it's already causing hate issues. As you will see here, the numbers eventually kind of bottom out at 155 to 160 DPS per hit, an evasion of around 6%, and a parrying rate of around 2%. So we avoid the attacks roughly 8% of the time. Pretty awful from a tanking standpoint. Now let's see what happens when all we change is Malignant Gear. And as you can see on the left-hand side there, we are barely taking any hits. So I wonder what our evasion and parrying looks like now. Let's go ahead and take a look at these numbers as they come in. Wow, I can already tell it is a dramatic difference. Let's go ahead and analyze some of these numbers as they refine themselves. First off, per hit rate. Obviously that was near 155 to 160 before, and now it looks like it's down to as low as about 90 to 100. That's obviously because of all of the damage taken reduction that's natively on this gear, so therefore we're taking less physical damage as these things are bombarding us. So that is pretty much expected. It looks like it's even now gone as low as 80, so that's fantastic to see. Let's go ahead and look over at our evasion. Now I'll remind you, this was only at a few percent before. By simply swapping in the Malignant Gear, we are up to an evasion percentage of around 70%. Now in my test, it always ended up being somewhere between 66 and 70%, so that's about what you should expect. And then the parrying rate, since we're evading so much, we haven't even had a parry yet. And this is partly why it is I wanted to bring up these other gear sets, because it plays into things like the counter set later on. Because at this point, we're evading so much, we aren't even getting parries in, nonetheless trying to get to the counter check. So as you can see, that set gives us scores of about 85 damage per hit, and 66 to 70% evasion rate. And obviously there's going to be 1 to 2% of parrying in there as well usually. We're just not seeing it in this particular example. So overall, we're going to be evading about 70% of the time by only swapping Malignant Gear into our DPS set. In essence, making you a DPS tank, which is why I so highly recommend this set for endgame boss content, especially if you're taking it on solo. Now if we want to push our evasion even further, we'll go ahead and swap to our evasion set. That not only keeps us in our Malignant set, but also changes all of our accessories to evasion accessories. And there is the change. I'm going to go ahead and reset the parse, and let's see what the evasion and def numbers look like now. Now I am just resetting the parse right here at this moment, so it's going to take us a few seconds to collect data, but we should immediately see that of course the amount that we're taking per hit is still going to be that exact same of about 80 to 85. However, our evasion is now going to have gone up to usually about the 80 to 82% range, and then we'll parry about 2 to 3%, now making it so we are evading attacks 85% of the time. So let's quickly recap the numbers those sets gave us. the initial set of the Kendatsuba, which is our usual DPS set, we were getting hit for 160 damage per hit, and we're evading attacks roughly 9% of the time. With the Malignant TP set, we cut the amount that we were being hit by in half. I mean, we were now evading 65% of the time and 2% parrying, so a total of around 67%. Now, by adding in more evasion gear in the form of accessories, we kept the 80 per hit damage we were taking, but we were now able to boost our evasion to 82% evasion and that same 2% parrying. So overall, we have a evasion rate of about 85% with this setup. So now that it's clear where Ninja currently stands when taking in this specific situation, let's go ahead and add in some of the new gear that we've gotten access to and see how that changes things. Now, what you're about to see shocked me, and I never expected this set to perform this well, as frankly it's missing a lot of magic evasion and other stats over the two sets that I had just mentioned. However, every time I did this test, and I did it over a dozen times in the same fashion you're about to see, this set ended up completely outperforming all the other sets, giving me at most times a near 100% evasion rate once you factored in evasion and the counter rate. Now you're going to notice my parrying percentage here goes up substantially. I have to think that either my intimidation effect is being counted as some kind of parrying, or that my counters are being counted as parrying, because I know there is not a way for the parse application to give me a readout on either of those two stats. Now, at this point in the run, as you can see, we have 83% evasion. I'm getting hit for only 55 damage on average per hit, and we're parrying at 11%. This is giving me around a 95% evasion rate at this moment when you factor all those in. So, really, at this point, I wanted to kind of see how far I could take this. So I just started looking around for other mobs and pulling them in to try and gather more data and just see how far we can push this. I'm going to go ahead and skip forward about 2 minutes, as it'll take me a minute or two to run around this zone and gather up a bunch more Apex mobs. And here we are, after running around the zone a bit to collect a few more mobs. As you can see, our evasion and parrying right together are still at about 96% at this point, as I carried all those mobs through these tunnels. We've picked up some Apex Cracklaws and some Apex Bats. All in all, I think we have about 12 mobs right now. And this is all, of course, adding to our data for exactly how much per hit we're getting taken. How much we're evasion, how much we're parrying. And as you can see, our numbers are holding pretty strong. We're only getting hit for about 60 damage per hit, which is, of course, far less than the 160 we were taking in our DPS set, or even the 80 we were taking in our Malignance set. Looking further down the stats, we are now evading about 82% of the time, and about a 6% parry rate. So overall, we're back at about 88% now. So we're still about 3% higher than what we were in our full evasion set. And just to prove the point, let's go ahead and switch back to our regular DD gear set just to see how long these trusts can... never mind. As you can see, we didn't even last a few seconds. Now, let's see what happens when we add even more mobs into the equation. I want to see how crazy I could get. Here I am tanking over 30. So as you can see, as I've been going around the entire zone and collecting these mobs, we've maintained an evasion rate of 77% and a parrying rate of 14%. And we're only getting hit for roughly 57 damage. So we're holding strong. We're going to go ahead and add our 6 last mobs here. More Apex Bats, more Cracklaws. Now we have well over 30. I've lost count, but I know it's over 30 because that's when I stopped counting. And as you can see, it's still a complete non-issue. It's just laughable, really. Now, as you will see, the parrying rate and evasion rate will fluctuate a little bit between 85% and 92%, I've noticed, if you combine those two numbers. So that's about the evasion rate and parrying rate you should expect in this set. But that's incredible. Now, granted, as the levels of the mobs go up, these are all about a level 130 to 138. As you go to 145, etc., you're not going to get quite these evasion and parrying numbers, of course. But it really should show you just what is possible and how much of a difference these sets can make. I'm really excited to try some of this stuff out and see just what I'm capable of tanking now in regards to some Dynamis and other endgame content. I'm even wondering if now, quite possibly, I won't be taking near as much damage from those Atonement 3 NMs that I've been taking so much damage from before. Maybe Migawari won't be as necessary now. The other thing I'll point out is, sadly none of this gear is going to be game-changing in regards to new best-in-slot gear for DPS on Ninja. However, all of the gear does have all-around decent DPS stats in the form of critical hit, triple attack, and even though it doesn't have quite as much as Kendatsuba, it of course has all these other benefits, making it so you should be able to do decent DPS. Now I sat here with all these mobs on me for several minutes, swapping out individual pieces of gear, playing with different weapons, all kinds of stuff, just to kind of, see just how far I could push this. But let me fast forward to the end of the run and show you what happens when I have all these mobs on me and simply switch to our normal Malignant Evasion set and see if that is any better than how we did with our Kendatsuba when we only had 12 on us. Yeah, it doesn't matter how much curing I had, there's no way I was going to live through this situation either. Once again, just showing you how amazingly impressive this new gear set is for ninjas and what it may now make us capable of. I want to go ahead and show you one last thing. Let's now look at the counter rate that we've now been given access to on the body. This gives us new possibilities in regards to adding counter rate to our evasion sets. I went ahead and added a counter rate to our evasion set to see how it did with the numbers we've already seen. Let's take a look at those. So the key thing to remember with this set is we've had to remove quite a bit of evasion in order to add some of these counter pieces. So the big question here is that worth it? Does it lead to an overall better evasion rate when you include evasion, parrying, and countering? The answer looks to be yes, slightly. If you remember back to our evasion set, we were getting hit for about 80 damage per hit, evading about 82% of the attacks, and parrying about 2%. Well, with this counter set in my test, and note, I had 44 counter in this, so I wasn't using the earring or anything, I was basically just using the 4 main items. I was getting hit for 80 damage, so roughly the same as the evasion set, but my evasion was only 70-75% because we reduced our evasion by so much. However, because we were now doing some intimidating as well as some countering, our parrying rate was now up to 10-15%. So this means overall, well, we did gain probably 2-3% worth more of evasion by using this counter set. So yes, it looks like it is worth it. That being said, I don't think I'm truly happy with losing that much magic evasion and evasion. So I think personally, I'm now going to stick with 3 sets instead of the 2 that I've had historically. The Kendatsuba set for maximum DPS and accuracy. The Malignant set for maximum magic evasion and evasion while still maintaining decent DPS numbers through the use of store TP. And the third and final set will be the Mpaca set that excels at magic defense, and overall tanking, while still maintaining good DPS numbers through the use of critical hit stats, triple attack stats, and other bonuses such as accuracy and attack. I also want to point out that all the references I make to Mpaca gear in this video is in its unaugmented form. Once you augment this gear, it adds some tremendous DPS capabilities that does make some of this gear arguably best in slot for DPS, making it so one day, once all of this gear is augmented, it potentially may be a solid DPS set. The last thing I'll point out is the weapons I used in all these tests. I used the Fudo Masamune and Pass C in my main hand, and I used the brand new katana that has been made available to us called Saru that is available from an earlier Atonement NM. That's going to be it for this episode of A Guide to Ninja series. I hope you enjoyed that delve into this new gear and what potential it offers. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I look forward to showcasing this gear in some of my future videos. Stay safe and stay healthy out there.